my name is Bill Keenan, and I serve as a neonatologist at Glennon and St. Mary's. And I really do feel greatly honored to be here with you today and appreciate this opportunity to witness the missioning as well as share some of my ideas and experiences with you. Full disclosure, I love hospitals. I worked as a housekeeper, elevator operator, phlebotomist, lab tech, EEG tech, EKG tech, orderly and physician. And I was telling Sister Susan earlier, depending how you count it, I've worked in 8 or 9 of the SSM hospitals over the years, long years. So maybe a bit unusual approach, but I'd like to talk about the influence of saints in our lives. Not necessarily the exalted figures of ages ago, but with a close look around us, we might find saints in our daily experience. The term saint is often used in a religious interpretation, but I think the term implies equally as well outside of that religious context. My definition of a saint is an ordinary person who performs extraordinary feats for the benefits of others. Now, just to emphasize the ordinary nature of many saints, let me mention a few well-known saints. One is St. Jerome. I'm named after St. Jerome, who translated the Bible so it could be read by ordinary people. He was often depicted with a heavenly halo bent over a book, bringing light to the people. Very revered. Wonderful paintings. Well, he was such an ordinary cuss that his fellow monks made him live all by himself in a hut out in the forest. He was even mean to his best friend. So, a mixed character, a saint nevertheless. Then there's St. Augustine, known as the great Christian theologian and father of the church, a really holy guy. My favorite quote from Augustine, however, is, "O Lord, give me celibacy, but not just yet." So he was it's widely held that only his mother's prayers saved him from himself. So that's enough illustration about the ordinary nature of even highly regarded official saints. But my thoughts today revolve around a few of the saints that I've experienced in my work at SSM. So here are my saints. I'll begin with Sister Betty Brooker, who was president of St. Mary's in St. Louis in part of the 1970s and the 1980s. She was a woman who was propelled by the needs of others. As late as the early 80s, women experiencing a high-risk pregnancy who had a little income and few resources in our part of the country had really no place to go for high-risk care. Barnes, with abundant resources, was focused on the insured population, and St. Mary's Health Center had very limited high-risk services. And opening such a service at St. Mary's was felt by most to be very risky for the hospital, very expensive, very little compensation for the hospital, and also could potentially drive away the wealthy patients. In spite of significant opposition inside and outside the system, Sister listened to everybody and said, "Let's go forward. The families need us." Well, the results were just absolutely spectacular. Her affirmation drove a substantial decrease in the maternal mortality rate in our communities, the neonatal mortality rate, the neonatal morbidity rates. So in this entire 2-state area, her affirmation made a difference. So high-risk maternal care at St. Mary's was off to a great start. But Sister Betty Brooker, in my view, is a fantastic example of an ordinary person saying yes to an extraordinary challenge. And she's my friend, but mostly my hero. My second hero example is actually a group of folks. These are the mothers and the fathers of the babies in our neonatal intensive care units. Motivated, courageous, unselfish, totally devoted to the well-being of someone else. Now, there's so many examples that many of you here today have your own examples of and experiences, I am sure. But there are these heroic parents responding to the child's needs In spite of their own shattered expectations, their heroes are rearranging these expectations and replacing former hopes and ambitions with an ever-deepening and profound love. Heroes rebounding from grief to begin seeking new kinds of hope. Even with rare inevitable lapses, I never failed to be, most of the lapses are mine, by the way. I never failed to be inspired and impressed by these ordinary people, giving of themselves in an extraordinary way. To these exemplary saintly qualities of devotion and lack of selfishness, we heard the lack of selfishness in our missioning ceremony. Let me add two other attributes that I think are ingredients to having a profound impact on others. First is a spirit of being steadfast. And we heard the spirit of steadfastness being quoted in the missioning ceremony. But these saintly people, in my experience, seem to be invested for the long run. They just don't give up. The second ingredient that I would cite is a sense of humor. You have to have a forgiving perspective about our own shortcomings as well as those of others. And that's essential, I think, if we were seeking our saintly presence for others. So what are the lessons for all of us? Big crowd here, great leadership, and I am very impressed and humbled to be here. But how might we relate to these heroes that I've mentioned, these saints, in our regular days, in our work? I think these folks point the way to how we as ordinary women and men might continue to say yes to helping others with our lives. I think, these heroes might help us look beyond routines and view our work experiences as extraordinary opportunities with which we are privileged to say yes to the needs of others. I think we might be reminded today of our privilege of being involved in really holy work. There's skill applied with hope, insight guided by perseverance, devotion to the well-being of others, a kind word, a regular job done with our best efforts, and with love. And of course, don't forget the sense of humor. You need that. So as we engage on our best efforts directed at the well-being of others, we should recognize that we ourselves are enriched by the very act of giving. It's such a privilege and such a blessing. So let me finish with a quote from St. Augustine, the person I quoted earlier. Now, this is after he'd been rescued with the help of his mother, St. Monica. So his quote, it's really an interesting one. Pray as if everything depended on God. Work as if everything depended on you. So thanks very much.